Fewest world records ever. Humans have athletically peaked.
This is where it all began. The original elite athlete was average, at least.
Let's go back in time to
average body type. And then...
Well, the Olympics are a skewed version of what the athletic build was, because the Olympics used to be an average everyday guy. Like, pro athletes used to not be able to compete in the Olympics. That's like a fairly new thing.
something extraordinary happened.
Really? Yeah, I don't know what date they changed that. When could pros compete in the Olympics? 1986. So before 1986, you weren't allowed to be a pro athlete. You just had to be like an everyday average guy that just like ran. NBA players were permitted to compete for the first time in basketball in the Olympics in 1992. Professional boxers were the first time eligible to compete in the Summer Games in 2016. Hockey players in 1998 from the NHL. So that's like a fairly new thing. Even though, yeah, even so, before then, the average body of like an athletic man was smaller.
Smashing the world record! Unbelievable! He's done it again!
Basketball players got taller. Shot putters got larger. Gymnasts, smaller.
All these highly specialized body types.
Dude, it is wild when you watch the Summer Olympics and you see like a gymnast that's like 4'8", 4'10". Like, wow. I don't think it's like genetically like, I think even at the top, nobody knew the meta in video game terms. Like, there were people that were 6'5" in the, you know, the 1900s. That just wasn't known to be the meta, right? Like, being a gymnast and being like 5'8" was like normal. And then they found out like, hey, like the smaller you are, I assume they found out, hey, the smaller you are, the more tricks you're able to do, the better you're able to actually perform. And I don't think people were like breeding towards that. I think it was just like, hey, you're 6'10", maybe you should play basketball.
Body type for different sports accelerated out from this beginning. But unlike our universe, the rate is slowing.
Athletes have kind of settled.
Shot putters are the heaviest. Oh, for Olympic sports. I was going to say, I assume like sumo wrestlers have probably remained very stagnantly the same since like the inception of the sumo tradition. Like, sumo wrestlers have always been like 400 pounds, right? Or just like bigger.
Universe, the rate is slowing.
Athletes have kind of settled into their body types, a natural artificial selection, so to speak. Even in the NBA, where we saw height skyrocket for decades, it has plateaued recently. In fact, many believe that the 92 Dream Team would beat today's team.
Hell no. I'm not even an expert on basketball, but I know I'm almost certain that like modern NBA and like pro teams would dog any team from 40 years ago. What the fuck? Actually, no shot. Dude, like the pro team then versus now. The heights have stagnated in the NBA primarily because there's like a limit on mobility for really tall guys, right? Like, same thing with like track running. Like, Usain Bolt was like an anomaly. He was like 6'5", 6'6". It's like, once you surpass that height, you get slower. Like, you can't compete. You have advantages, but that's why like Victor Wembanyama is like some like feat in the NBA, because he's like super tall, but also moves like he's like 6'5". You know, it's very rare you have some guy that's like 7'8" and able to fucking run around.
Thinking about this over the last few weeks, watching the Olympics, I couldn't help but wonder, are athletes still getting more athletic?
Well, a big mixture of it is the innovation of technology. Like, people do argue track-wise that some of the earlier, like, world record holders, when they used to run on, like, fucking ash and shit, would smoke some of the guys now because, you have starting blocks and track shoes, and you're running on a track surface that's meant for speed, whereas you used to just have to run. So I think it's a mixture of shit. I think it's better training, better athletics, better genetics, finding a more niche person for the sport and then also just technological advancements.
Absolutely electric.
A Berlin summer night in 2009, the most fitting name in sports history, gave us exactly what we craved.
Set.
You can't catch him. Usain Bolt. Look at the turn. Absolutely.
There is no one on this planet or any other one that we know of that has ever run that fast.
Breaking the 100-meter world record, this was a phenomenal feat, but
I would pay so much money to be able to see that live, dude. And I feel like people make fun of track a lot. People don't like track and swimming because they're like, oh, it's just like it's just times, dude. They're fast. But I'm like, you don't get how quick these guys are moving. Like, I've said it, and a lot of people say it on social media every Olympics. Get an average guy to run with these guys. Because you see Usain Bolt, and he smokes these dudes that are also running fast, and you're like, okay, yeah, he's like 2 strides ahead of them. He's fucking 2-3 strides against the next fastest guy in the world. Like, that's fucking wild. This race alone had like fucking, 3 people run like sub-10s? 4 people run sub-10s? That's unheard of, dude. He's almost running 30 miles an hour.
I believe that this represents something far grander than we could have appreciated at the time. It's not that it's just a world record. It's how long it stood a world record. Take a look at this real quick. It's the record for the longest record. All the way at the top is Usain Bolt, and at these Olympics, nobody was seriously close to his record.
It's Noah Lyles.
So what about other events? Are world records just standing longer now? For the men...
Bro, you need another... Dude, for you to have another guy be... This is a Joe Bart take. I'm not a fucking expert here, but I did run track, so I'm just going to have my own fucking take here. For another guy to beat Usain Bolt's record, you can't be having these guys that are like 5'10" to 6'2". You need another 6'6" fucking demon that's fucking 195 pounds shredded and just runs at an unheard pace. It's genetics. At that point, all the guys that are popular in the track scene now are fast. They're not tall enough. They can't run. They're not tall enough, but they don't want to be too tall because then you get slower. You need that. You need another Usain Bolt. You need another guy that's like 6'5". That's got the genes. There are guys that are 6'5" and are pro track runners, but they're just not going to beat the record.
In the 100, 200, and 400, we have only seen one world record since 2009. And for the women, we haven't seen a single world record in the sprints since the 80s.
Lawrence Griffith Joyner blowing away the field.
It's almost as if...
Dude, running a 10.49 as a woman is like, you are the fastest person ever. Like, that is fucking crazy.
Athletes have gotten so fast, they're slowing down. At least the rate of progress. Were the peaks of the 80s and 90s just a byproduct of steroid use? What's going on here?
To understand this, let's go back closer to the beginning when the elite athlete was more average.
Nobody in this chat could run a 10.4. No, there's like five or six people that could probably run a 10.4 in this chat. My average audience member, there's probably like 66% men in this chat right now, maybe 70%, and of that, the average audience range is like 16 to 22. Of that, there's 3 or 4 people that could run a 10.4. Everybody claiming they could run a 10.4 probably can't run a 10.4. But there's people that could run a 10.4 in this chat. 10.4 at 10.4 as a guy, you're not going pro. You're a good runner, but like you know you're gonna run D1. Like for you to go pro in the 100 as a guy in 2026, and you want to get signed to like Adidas or Nike, and you're not just like some famous social media guy like getting signed off of like showmanship versus actual raw talent, you're probably gonna need to run consistent 10 flats. In the 9s, you're gonna have to touch the 9s. You're gonna have to touch the 9s pretty frequently. In hurdles is also crazy. World record, I don't think that's been beaten since 2012.
Jesse Owens.
Owens ended up running a 10.3 in Berlin. He set the world record by
10.3 on whatever fuck-ass equipment and track this is. Bro, this is like dirt. I think it's actually like cinder or some shit.
An event.
Jesse Owens.
Owens ended up running a 10.3 in Berlin. He set the world record by running a 10.2 earlier that year. But if he had run that this year, he wouldn't have even qualified for the Olympics. In fact, he'd get dusted by teenagers. Closed skills, such as sprinting, provide
There's like 16-year-olds that would smoke him.
a nice glimpse into athletic progress. The measurables are very clean, and clearly here, this is a sign that we are getting faster as a species. Or is it?
Let's consider a few items that were highlighted by writer David Epstein.
Bolt started out of blocks.
Rough last name pull. Rough last name pull.
Specially fabricated carpet designed to propel him forward. Owens started out of holes that he dug with a gardening trowel. Not quite the same thing. Experts suggest that if he had blocks, the difference would have been roughly 0.1 to 0.2 seconds. Bolt also ran on a modern-day track, an embossed rubber surface that enhanced his grip with every single stride. Owens ran on ash, a cinder track, which is ash from burnt wood. That surface stole far more of his energy, and it's no coincidence that if you look at the first sub-10 in the 100-meter for the men, it was run after they moved away from these cinder tracks. Experts suggest this was another 0.15 to 0.2 seconds. Bolt also had far better shoes and training and development, but even if we don't count that, biomechanical analysis that looked at the speed of Jesse Owens' joints suggests that if they had run under the same circumstances, he wouldn't have been 14 feet behind. He would have been within one stride.
Yeah, he would have been a modern day pro. He would have been able to compete because it's different with games of skill. When you're playing games that need athleticism and skill, I'm not saying that track doesn't have skill, because it does have skill and it does have technique, but you can put a lot of guys from 80 years ago up against guys now sprinting, right? Because genetically, they're just fucking monsters. But in the NBA, for example, they get better. They have better training. They know how to move the ball more. They know how to move their body better. Not because, genetically they're better, but just they're better players. That's why when you see the shit where it's like, oh, the Michael Jordan Bulls would compete against the USA team. No, the fuck they wouldn't. They would get mauled. They would get murdered. It wouldn't even be close.
There have been a few sprinters who have given us a few examples of this.
Just go fucking 80 points in the first quarter.
Sean Crawford famously took on a zebra on dirt, running a 10.89 on Man vs. Beast, far below what he usually ran. Canadian 2016 bronze medalist Andre DeGrasse ran on a track crafted to be similar to Owens, and he ran an 11 flat, 1.1 seconds slower than his 9.9. So, considering an alternate...
Well, that's also because he's not used to the track. When you move surfaces and you change what they're doing, they're gonna get worse before they get better.
Universe where Owens and Bolt were both born in 1986, this race would have been a lot closer.
And you can say the same thing about virtually every running event. The first 4-minute mile run by Sir Roger Bannister was on a cinder track as well. And you may have noticed that distance racers have been breaking records left and right. Why? Well, the shoes. And no, this is not a Nike ad. Kind of wish it was, though. Our boy Sir Roger here was not wearing the Nike Alpha Flies.
To get a better understanding of this, I spoke with the globally recognized biomechanist Dr. Peter Weyand, the chair of kinesiology at TCU, who specializes in speed.
When the advanced footwear technologies came along, all the records for distance running, the record books have been almost entirely rewritten since 2016, not because the athletes are better or the performance.
I still have the take that Kipchoge, the marathon runner that runs 26 miles with an average mile split in the mid to low 4s, is a feat of humanity that will probably not be broken for quite some time. Kipchoge runs a 2-hour marathon. That's insane. That's I glaze that every time we talk about track and athleticism. That guy is, dude, his worst mile is better than the best mile you could run one time. He runs 26 miles in a row. His worst mile is still better than the best mile you will ever run in your life.
Barrier once thought impossible is now broken.
It's a form
Yeah, 159. Jesus.
of mechanical doping, tech improvements causing records to fall, at least on land. What about
In water.
Who's the woman that just broke like 10 fucking records or some shit this past Summer Olympics? She's a swimmer and she won in such a lead that like you couldn't even see anybody else on the screen. Katie Ledecky. Yeah, she was so good that nobody was even close.
In the 28 individual swimming events that'll be contested in Paris,
Oh, because athletically there's less technical things you can do. Oh, I see. Because in swimming, they can't give you technological improvements. It's just like Speedo, goggles, swim shorts. It's just like you need the right build and right athleticism.
close to half of the top 10 times have been posted in the last 4 years. Why? Well, part of it is technology. Gutters added to the sides of pool to decrease turbulence, and high-speed swimsuits that decreased friction.
I am wearing the fastest suit in the world.
Caused these guys' times to plummet. But even after all that technology is taken into account, the frequency of world records falling in swimming is significant in comparison to running. So why is there this difference? One simple reason. We've been runners for a long time, and it's been a while since we were swimmers, at least natural full-time swimmers.
At some point, you had the shift from life in water.
Was that Snoop Dogg learning how to like fucking competitively swim?
From life in water to life on land.
And by the way, I put a lot of time and research into this channel, so if you're
Oh, I'll fucking subscribe, buddy. This is a great video. Oh, I already am subscribed. Never mind.
enjoying this, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. Thanks.
If it isn't painfully clear, this is a very unnatural movement. And running, we've been doing it for a long time, so we've had a lot of time to perfect it. So while technology is a big contributor to development, it's not everything. And for that, we can look to the game that's grown more than any over the last century.
Soccer! Oh. The NBA!
Basketball.
Take a look at the Celtics game. Bob Cousy.
Bro, teams are also better because they're like pulling the actual genetic like groups of people they need for each position. Like you see so many people that are like all the guys that are like over 7 foot are always like foreign players. Like the tallest guys are always like Jokic or somebody that's like, you know, from Europe, not from the US. Well, I don't even know positions in basketball if I'm being honest. What position does Nikola Jokic play? Don't know. Center? Yes, the centers are always foreign. Isn't it like point guards are always from the US?
This is 32
like shooters.
years before the Dream Team. Which era
Quarterback.
do you think had better players?
These games are 32 years apart, the same distance of time as the Dream Team is to us today. The difference between a 1960s player and a 1990s player is glaring. The difference between a Dream Team player and today is far less significant. Why was there such a stark contrast between the 60s and 90s, but not the 90s and today?
Because you had a bunch of unks playing basketball in the 60s, bro. That shit was terrible, dude. Somebody made a three. It was like a fucking Super Bowl play.
Many factors have contributed to this. Population growth, more revenue to develop and attract more athletes, and just think of how growth works in general. When you're new to something, you tend to get better.
There weren't threes in the 60s, really?
In the early stages. Bob Cousy was literally born before.
Like, look at that fucking photo, bro. Oh my God. Actual cornball. Sitting there. Don't let me cross your legs up now.
Before the NBA existed. He was born in a period that predated racial integration in basketball. The game,
yeah, big thing as well,
didn't have the same
all white guys
level of professional seriousness. Bob was the highest paid player ever, making $25,000 annually. Is television and radio allowed for more resources and pay? The typical NBA body type exploded into outlier territory.
If you were 7 feet tall and born outside of the US in 1945, you probably wouldn't have been found, at least by the NBA. That changed.
Well, and so many people that were genetically built to be NBA players didn't even know about basketball as a professional sport in that time.
Dramatically over a few decades. The percentage of 7-footers skyrocketed. However, these bigs weren't always coveted.
But that really emerged at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. And
that's Professor Timothy Olds, who, along with Professor Kevin Norton, published the original paper detailing this big bang of body types.
The general philosophical principle of the golden mean.
In the early 1900s, physical education instructors and coaches believed that the average body type was the best for all athletics.
There's a long tradition in philosophy going back to Aristotle. If you look at, for example, the balance of the humours, you had to have the right amount of the different humours to be a complete person. Any departure from the norm was seen as an abnormality and therefore in some ways pathological.
Perhaps better than any sport, the NBA personifies this rapid shift in belief and player talent. And this explains why we see such a contrast from the 1960s to the Dream Team.
I don't even think Bob would have argued that. Sorry, Bob. Kind of roasting you.
Bob would have been on a fucking varsity high school team, bro. Maybe not even that. If you took 1960s best NBA player, he would be like a high school varsity player.
However,
the comparison between the Dream Team and today, though, is much different. Dozens of comments on my previous video, numerous former players. There is a large contingent that believes this Dream Team would beat the Avengers of today. It's even got its own Colin Cowherd sample.
It would be grown-ups against the kids, and the Dream Team would roll.
The basketball is so much better now than it's ever been.
It's got its own serious schizophrenic Cowherd divide, and it's kind of understandable. The optics just aren't as measurably different here. I mean, they kind of are because these are action figures, and it's not real life. But in real life, it's kind of hard to tell.
At least on its surface. Because there is a significant difference, we just have to take a step further. The human limit is not confined to tangible differences. There are strategic and skill advances that push us forward in massive ways. In my last video, I pointed to the fact that there wasn't a single player on today's Team USA who you could leave at 3. On the Dream Team, there were 7. Many commenters dismissed this point, primarily stating that the Dream Team was more physical, fundamental, and that shooting isn't everything, which suggests that the best basketball players and teams existed 32 years ago. We need to clear up this confusion, because once you understand a few key changes, you will hopefully realize this is not even a debate. In fact, many people on both sides are looking at this completely wrong. Schematic evolutions such as shooting more threes now versus posting up, they're more difficult to distill than Bob Cousy versus Magic Johnson. Sorry, Bob. So I want to show you a few key changes that will hopefully put this to rest. I went back and watched a few.
Bob Cousy would walk off the court crying, bruh. Imagine taking some random guy from the 60s and putting him against modern NBA players, or even like 80s NBA players.
Do these Dream Team games to break it down.
So after you control for the ridiculous amount of transition offense, from my count, Team USA had 91 possessions, 39 of them were transition offense possessions. What you find is very little movement and very little space. There were 19 post-up possessions in this game. That's about quadruple the NBA average today. Despite scoring 117 points, they only made 5 threes. For comparison purposes, the 2024 Team USA made 18 in their first game. Why are so many of these guys chucking like they're Steph Curry?
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I guess one of them actually is Steph Curry, but what about the rest of them? What about LeBron, Embiid, Davis? Why don't they take their man down to the block like Malone, like Robinson, like Jordan did, like Barkley did? Why are they so soft?
Well, they're softer because they're smarter. This isn't just my belief. This is math. I will show you. And this revolution started with a rule change, one that benefited the defense. Yes, there was a rule change after the 90s that benefited the defense, one that inadvertently pushed our human limit and created better basketball players.
Before the rule change and in this Dream Team era, defenses couldn't help like they can today. They had to either double team or stick to their man. Even if it was Dikembe Mutombo out there, they had to respect him. That made it easier for guys like Malone and Jordan to score in post possessions or isolations. There just wasn't as much help defense.
Yo, this is the front of the rim. One of the best movies, bro, Space Jam. The original Space Jam, bro. All those older NBA players, man.
He's not double
such a good movie.
teaming anybody. That's it.
Rule change made post-ups in isolations less effective.
Welcome to the Space Jam. Oh, bro, I gotta play the song now. Welcome to the jam. New one's ass. I haven't seen the new one. Is it good?
Which is partially why you see less of them today. But more importantly, it revealed something that had been hidden in plain sight.
Just take a look at this possession real quick. I'm going to pause it. Patrick will only receive 2 points for this shot, one step inside the arc. If he had taken one step further back, he would have received 3. He would have received 1.5 times the points for one step back. That is not fair, but that is how basketball works. You get 3 behind the arc, 2 in front of it. And in today's NBA, players will make an 18-footer, which is about what this ends up being, 40% of the time. That's 0.8 points per possession. They would make a 20.5-footer about 38% of the time. That is 1.14 points per possession. For context, the difference between the top team, the Celtics, is 1.23, and my team, unfortunately, the Blazers, is 1.08. It's not even as big of a difference here.
One common misconception around this is that the NBA has gotten soft and become more of a selfish jump shooting league. Well, this isn't really accurate. Teams shoot just as many jump shots as they did in the 90s. What has
53%, mid-range has gone way down.
Changed is shot selection. Using these numbers straight from the NBA's website, even if we assume the Dream Team was just as good at shooting, they'd be playing in a losing way. Per 100 possessions, assuming for NBA averages, it's a difference of about 10 points per game. You can throw MJ's mid-range in there. It still won't pencil out.
These are the types of strategic advances that push the human limit forward. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Let's go back to Owens for a second.
Out of the womb, he might have been just as built for the 100-meter as Bolt. How do we know this isn't true for our dreamers in a different way? The Dream Team grew up in an era where there was no development of the 3 because there was no 3. Players are smarter and unobjectively better shooters today, largely due to this discovery, but like all advances that have pushed the human limit, that does not take away anything from previous generations.
Would Pippen, Jordan, Drexler, and even the bigs have been able to develop a 3? It's hard to deny they wouldn't have at least been better. And they would have had coaches telling them, I need you to take a step back. Not like in a confrontational way, like to shoot the 3.
So where does that leave us? Well, there have been
I don't know. I feel like it will suck if at some point in the future, like, world records just never get broken. Like, they get set, and then the Olympics every year is just kind of like this churned process of like, oh, this is the best person right now, which is obviously what it is in general. It's like, oh, you're the fastest man alive right now. But it's like watching a world record get broken and watching players get astronomically better over, decades of time is what's really fun about a sport.
Advances, strategic shifts, and more athletes playing adequate sports. Less new world records. Where is this limit? Where do we go from here?
Personally, I find all of this exciting and simultaneously terrifying. The Olympics provide us with this nice benchmark every 4 years, this line in the sand to see how far we've come as a species. And as humans, we will always be pushing up against that line. We will always be pushing the goalpost back. But as technology improves, there's at least one group I do not envy, and that is World Athletic Organization, the folks in charge of deciding what's legal, what's not, what is fair. At least there's some beauty in this. Our bodies are clearly limited, but our minds and spirits don't really seem to be. That is the human condition. That is what fuels progress.
Wow. Surreal to see an independent creator rival 30v30 quality. Can't wait to see how this channel blows up. Oh, this was made over a year ago. Wow. Tennis is so complicated and difficult. The top players just keep getting better because the big four weren't even near the limits. Another reason why sports is incredible. Yeah, I think it depends on the sport, right? You're gonna top out a lot quicker in a sport with a lower skill ceiling. You know, same thing with video games. Like, you're gonna see like people in the video gaming sense just top out. Like the more complex the game is, the better it's going. The better the players are gonna get over time. Like, obviously. Fortnite, yeah. I mean, like, Fortnite, yeah. Like, I mean, like, over the years, dude, people have gotten astronomically better. It's just, like, the levels to that shit. Same thing with, like, hero shooters and other games like that. It's like, the more complex the game is, the more parts to the game, whether it be a video game or a sport, the better the players are going to get over time. All right, I'm going to go piss, and then we're going to hop in CS before we do this shit.